Hello, I'm Richard D. Hall and I would like to show you some compelling new information about the September the 11th attacks on the World Trade Center. There is still much debate in the 9/11 truth movement about the events. Although it was not my intention, I believe what I am about to show you reconciles most of the different theories, such as the planes were not passenger planes, the planes were very small, and some even say there were no planes at all. The intention of this analysis was simply to find out the truth, and to my knowledge, this analysis has not been uncovered by any single individual or organization to date, August 2010. Before I start, a brief introduction about myself. I have a science background and I'm a qualified electrical and electronic engineer. I worked for large companies in industry, predominantly in the UK, on engineering projects for 16 years. I worked on the Trident nuclear program and on many other technologies. My main areas of expertise are in data communications, software design, and electronics. I recently watched an excellent film called September Clues by Simon Shack. This film gives a detailed analysis of the television coverage of 9/11. Once you have seen the analysis carried out by Shack, it is indisputable that most, if not all, of the images shown on TV were doctored in some way. Almost all video images screened, including the ones which appeared to have been filmed on camcorders by members of the public, had artificial composite plane images added to the footage. This is a very difficult fact for most people to take on board. To get clarification on this, I would recommend you watch the September Clues film. I have made a TV program about Simon Shack's film with Andrew Johnson, where we reanalyze some of the footage. For example, in this shot, we see the plane's nose emerge from the World Trade Center tower. This is physically impossible. Add to this the fact that if we reverse the tape, the plane does not appear in the wide-angle shot because it has only been inserted in the narrow shot. Also, there is evidence that a layer mask has been used, behind which the editors have tried to make the plane disappear. However, the position of the layer mask, which was intended to be behind the tower, drifts to the left due to the camera drift and reveals the damning evidence of their video fakery. Finally, because this shot was aired live, after they realized the errors in their production, they frantically fade the footage to black, but are too late to conceal their tricks. This is just one of many anomalies exposed in Simon Shack's film. We now come on to the main new analysis I have uncovered. On the day of 9/11, after the first alleged plane hit the north face of World Trade Center 1, the nation's news media were immediately alerted and had cameras fixed on the Twin Towers. Some of the networks were broadcasting live images as the second tower was struck. The fabricated live images you have just seen were from Fox News Channel, allegedly filmed from a helicopter. NBC were also broadcasting live. In their live footage, seconds before the strike on World Trade Center 2, what has been described as a ball comes into the shot on a seemingly straight path. This ball was not commented on by any of the presenters and has never been discussed on mainstream news. In NBC's live footage, the feed switches to a different camera about 4 seconds before the second impact.
Another one just hit. Something else just hit.
Note that no plane is seen in any of NBC's live images. In this lower quality VCR recorded version, the camera does not switch, so we can see the resulting explosion. If we consider the path of the ball, it appears to be what causes the impact on World Trade Center 2. Both its trajectory and its speed show that it would have been at the point of impact at the time impact occurred. So we have just seen the footage which NBC broadcast live. Now let's compare that to what NBC showed on their evening news. This damning clip from September Clues shows that NBC were also using video fakery. The footage on the left is the live image, and on the right the evening news image. The sequences are synchronized and in slow motion. The images at first sight seem as though they are from totally different camera positions, but in fact they are not. By comparing the perspective of the towers, we can see that these two images are probably filmed by the same camera and certainly from the same position. They have in fact modified three aspects of the recorded live images to create the evening news images. Firstly, they have added a blue-grey tint to the image to make it seem different. Second, they have removed the entire background imagery of the river and New York skyline. And third, they have added a fake aeroplane which does not appear in the live shot. The evening news images are thus proven to have been faked. The footage of the ball, which is what we believe probably caused the impact on World Trade Center 2, is a key piece of evidence which until now has been overlooked and we will now examine. Let's go back and look at the live image of the ball as it comes towards the towers. We have increased the contrast and looped the sequence just to have a closer look. It certainly does not appear to be a plane, a helicopter, or even a missile. It is possible that the live footage from this angle at this time was not meant to be shown to the public. I now set about carrying out some detailed analysis of the trajectory path of the ball to see if anything more would come to light. The results, as you will see, are startling. The image we see is effectively two-dimensional, and the trajectory of the ball seems to come from above the towers. Using the information in this clip, I set about trying to find the actual three-dimensional path of the ball. I started by making some assumptions. Firstly, I assumed that the ball was travelling in a straight path. Secondly, I assumed the ball was travelling at fixed speed. And third, that the ball impacts on the south face of World Trade Center 2 in the position where the damage is caused. In order to work out a three-dimensional path, we need to find at least 2 points in space through which the object travelled. The first is simple. It is the impact point on Tower 2. In the footage, the ball is seen to disappear behind Tower 1, out of view. If I could determine the ball's exact position at this time, that would give a second point in space from which to determine the object's path. If we look at the camera's perspective, we can see Building 7 in the foreground. The left side of Building 7 appears roughly in the centre of Tower 2, and the right-hand side of Building 7 is slightly to the right of the edge of Tower 1. If we now look at an aerial plan of these buildings, we can draw a line showing the camera's line of sight. I determined that the camera was in fact positioned at approximately 4 degrees to the edge of the World Trade Centers. I continued the line, as the object must have been somewhere along that path at the point when it went behind Tower 1. I now needed another path to get an intersection point to determine the ball's position. There is much information on the internet about the damage to World Trade Center 2 and the possible angles of impact of the alleged plane. If I knew the angle the object hits the tower, I could draw a second line and thus determine the position of the ball. I examined very closely the damage to the towers and have marked on the tower the exact central point of impact. There was damage spread around the far corner of the tower at various locations, which correspond to different approach angles of the ball. In order to transfer the two-dimensional data onto a three-dimensional model, I used a 3D computer simulation package to make an exact 3D representation of the World Trade Center complex. What you see here is exactly dimensionally correct. The distance between the towers, the heights, widths and lengths are all entered in feet and inches to perfectly represent the situation. Once we have our 3D model, it is then possible to view the scene from any angle we wish. I also needed to create the ball, which I did by drawing a 50 feet wide disc-shaped object. In order to estimate the impact angle, I tried an angle of 15 degrees and then modeled this in 3 dimensions on the 3D model. But the resulting trajectory path, when compared to the TV images, was not steep enough. I then tried an angle of 21 degrees, which results in a steeper trajectory path and matches the TV footage. 21 degrees is a plausible impact angle, as there was significant damage at the back of the tower at this position. So I now had what I believed to be the correct trajectory path. I could then plot the intersection point of the camera's line of sight